Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. Right now, I'd like to give you Rob Crafa, who is part of the Oyster Bay Cold Spring Harbor Protection Committee and has a lot to do with organizing this wonderful program that we're going to hear about tonight. So enjoy. Rob?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Christy. I really appreciate everybody spending a little time with us tonight. I see a lot of friendly faces and I see a lot of new people. So we're excited to have you here. And let's get started. So my name is Rob Crafa. I'm the coordinator for the Oyster Bay Cold Spring Harbor Protection Committee, where I work, and we'll hear more about the Protection Committee. I'm also the waterfront director at SUNY Maritime College. Related to this, I also work with the Billion Oyster Project with my work in SUNY. Our objectives for tonight, we want to give you a little information about conservation efforts going on in Oyster Bay and Cold Spring Harbor, but mostly we want to excite you about becoming an oyster gardener crew member to help us raise oysters, to help keep our waters clean and improve our local habitat. The way we're going to do this is I'll introduce you to the Protection Committee. Some of you may not be familiar with what that is. We'll explain why we are playing with oysters, what exactly is oyster gardening, and then most importantly, we want you to be involved. And I'm proud to say we can say it's a success story, and there's a lot more work to be done, but we've already been very successful, and we want you to join the winning team that we've got going. As Christy said, you can shoot her questions in the text. If people interrupt, that's fine too. However we want to do this, we'll keep it informal, but we're here for you tonight to answer any questions that you have about the oyster gardening program. So here we go. So my always basic slide is, why do we care? And I think we all have our own personal reasons, but we all live in this beautiful area that we're fortunate to call home. I think in part because of the beautiful beaches, the wetlands, and the natural areas. And we don't like to see these signs up where the beaches are closed or there's no shellfishing allowed. So the Oyster Bay Cold Spring Harbor Protection Committee, as you can see, this is a watershed map designated by the different colors. A drop of rain that hits those areas will eventually wind up in our local waterways. And the Protection Committee is comprised of 11 municipalities. There's 9 villages, the town of Oyster Bay and Nassau County, that pay dues to pay me as a coordinator to help them efficiently and effectively help improve the water quality in the harbor. And the oyster gardening program is one of our main outreach programs.
Caroline has a question. She wants to know how brown tide affects oysters.
It can affect brown. Caroline, you wait your turn. But anyway, I know Caroline very well. Brown tide can affect it. It's an algae that they can't eat. So brown tide would really hurt oysters. But luckily, brown tide hasn't affected our area, so that's not of concern just yet. Okay, I just want to talk about some of the programs that the Protection Committee does. Is encouraging people to maintain their septic system, see what kind of system that they have, maintain their septic system, and then now Nassau County has a septic program where they're actually giving loans of up to grants of up to $20,000 to encourage people to replace their older septic system with an innovative and alternative system. And I'm proud to say that Bayville residents are the largest single applicants for the grant program. So that's a really, really good thing. Some of you may have heard when this program was done in Suffolk County, there's some questions about whether that grant was taxed or not. And it's been decided that money is not taxed. So it goes directly to the companies that will put the system in your home. And the main reason for these septic systems is they help and remove more nitrogen than our traditional systems. Nitrogen can lead to algal blooms, not necessarily brown tide in our area, but other harmful algal blooms and lead to depleted oxygen. So that's why replacing your septic system is important. Also, we try to encourage people not to just let the dogs go on the lawn, but actually pick it up so we can control the pathogens or the bacteria that come from animal waste that can lead to beach closures or shellfish closures in our area. Why we started this program in 2017 was in Cold Spring Harbor. You can see the map here. Since 1970, areas of Cold Spring Harbor have been closed, and every number of so many years, an additional area further into the harbor, further north, gets closed. So you can see 1970 was just behind the sand spit, and then after 1977, it went out to between the Beach Club, and then the lab director's house, and then 2015, it swung out to the flagpole by Laurel Hollow Village Hall, and unfortunately, just last year, it's extended a little bit further. The difference between the blue, just so you know, the difference between the blue, dark blue, and then the red is red or permanent closures, which means shellfish are never allowed to be harvested there. The blue areas are what they call seasonal closures, which means they're closed during the summer months, May 1st through October 15th. And that's for public health and safety, so that the oysters and any shellfish actually do really, really well in these polluted waters. But because there's increased level of pathogens, people could get sick from consuming shellfish from these areas. Does anybody have, before I move on from this is usually a good place to stop. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, great. So why oysters? The Protection Committee really started this, and I'm happy to see Jeff Miratello on my screen here. He's such a good-looking guy. He's very humble, and you can see his forehead turns red when I talk to him about him. But Jeff Miratello came to me when I became the coordinator of the Protection Committee and said, there's a really good program we should do, and raising oysters. And if you know Jeff, I was accurate in calling him crazy for saying this. I said, I'm only part-time. How can we do this? And here we are 5 years later with 500,000 oysters in the bay, thanks to Jeff and his leadership on that. But the main reason we did this was educational awareness. As most of you know, we have I think two of the most beautiful harbors you'll find anywhere, and particularly Cold Spring Harbor often gets overlooked with the water quality issues that I mentioned. So this was an excellent program that's been successful in other areas, which I'll show you. And we said, wow, wouldn't this be a great way to get people down to the water a couple times a month where we can talk about these issues, and not only can we talk about them, but we can actually do something about them and helping the waters. And the young lady's t-shirt says it all, right? It's a lot of fun, and the program's grown so much over the years because it's a lot of fun. You just have to watch out for these crazy old guys photobombing you in the back there. That's Jeff there too. You can't tell because his hat's on. But why also for oysters? So the oyster population has and oyster reefs have declined anywhere, depending on where you read it, anywhere from 85 to 99%. I think the most stark thing is the Long Island's largest festival in Long Island is the Oyster Festival, and the oysters from the Oyster Festival no longer come from Oyster Bay. So we have our harvest in Oyster Bay has gone down to basically nothing. So that's a good reason for promoting oysters. But oysters are also what they call ecosystem engineers. They can, by filtering the water, they can, and eating the algae, they can help improve water clarity. They can help remove nitrogen when they're harvested. They enhance habitat, which what I've learned over the course of this program is really one of the most dramatic things that they do. And we've seen it even in our own efforts where there was no shellfish in the spawner sanctuary. A few years later, there's a lot more finfish, crabs, and other organisms using that spawner sanctuary area, which is amazing. And then there's can also be coastal shoreline protection. Water quality, as we said, we mentioned they filter. This is a experiment we've actually done several times for different press events. But if the tank on the left has no oysters, you put some oysters on the tank on the right, and you don't even need that many. But just within a couple hours, the water becomes crystal clear. It almost looks like it comes out of the tap because the oysters are such great filter feeders. And as we mentioned, it improves water clarity, which increases the photic zone, which allows sunlight to get deeper into the water column. So other oxygen-producing plants can help clean our waters, protect our waters, and it reduces nitrogen. Technically, it's recycling the nitrogen. If you pull the oysters out, you harvest them, then you're actually removing the nitrogen out of the system in total.
Vicky asks, where do most of the oysters come from that are served at the Oyster Festival?
Good question. I don't know. I believe they're from Connecticut this year. I don't know 100%, but I believe they're from Connecticut. Good question. So one of the key things is habitat enhancement. That is actually the top picture here is actually a pile of oysters in the spawner sanctuary in our area. The bottom picture I stole, but that you'll see an increase in finfish and crustaceans and recreational fishermen and fisheries. And I think that was Jeff's real reason. Jeff's a big fisherman, if you don't know, and he just wanted to help his fishing, so he wanted to put some oysters down. And nobody else will be excited about this graph, but there's two things really exciting about it. If you can see the years on the bottom, and then the production on the left shows you how quickly finfish and crustaceans start using the shellfish areas, sanctuaries, or reefs after they're produced. The thing that I'm really excited about this is the gentleman whose name is there on the bottom, Bose Hancock, Heather from Friends of the Bay, organized him. He's I think probably the foremost aquaculture specialist for the Nature Conservancy in the country. And he came to Oyster Bay last Monday to see what we were doing in the spawner sanctuary and seeing if the Nature Conservancy could help support some of the oyster restoration work. And I'll get to that later. But it's nice to see such interest from some top level researchers and specialists. And then also shoreline protection. The things sticking out of the water here, those are actually oysters in a reef here, and they can help dissipate wave energy so that spartina plants and other things can create more of like a living shoreline situation to protect against or minimize coastal storms effects. Any questions about the benefits of oysters? Obviously, we didn't go into the benefits of economics and harvesting them and eating them. These are really the environmental benefits. Okay. So what is oyster guarding? So oyster guarding really is just helping baby shellfish reach maturity through tending levered care. And so we're just giving nature a helping hand. And I love this slide because it sort of shows all the steps of oyster guarding. Here, it looks like you have a father and a son. This is, believe it or not, a mesh bag with 1,000 baby oysters in it. These two young ladies are showing you that the oyster is about the size of your pinky nail, about 12 millimeters in size when we get them. We put them in these cages similar to what this young lady is showing you here with the floats, which we've now moved over to the side. But you can see how productive, how much growth of algae there is on these cages. But the oysters are put in there. When obviously this bag is put in there, it doesn't weigh very much. But over time, as you can see, these young ladies here are measuring the oysters. We take them out once every 2 weeks, clean them, measure about 20 of them, which is Evie, our friend here, is doing. And you can see how big they are. This is late June. This is probably mid-August. Evie's measuring these. So the oysters go from 12 millimeters in size to, she's probably got oysters that are 2 inches in size right here. And they get up to 2.5, almost 3 inches by the time we do it. And then this little guy down here is using his Home Depot bucket to seed the spawner sanctuary. So all the oysters in this program go to a protected area where they can be fruitful and multiply without concerns of harvest pressure. And we'll get into a little bit more of that later. For some reason, there we go. I always like to give credit. You know, I like to bust on, there's two things I like. I like to bust on Jeff and then take credit for nothing, because any good idea that I have, I've stolen from somewhere else. So this really came from, I think the granddaddy of all this type of programs on Long Island is the SPAT program. I think that's the idea that Jeff had seen and was very excited about. And so we took some of their concepts and brought them here. But there's programs in Moriches Bay, in Bellport Bay, in New York Harbor with the Billion Oyster Project, on the Jersey Shore, in Barnegat Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay is probably the granddaddy of them all throughout the country. They're pretty amazing programs. We all do a little bit different depending on our local needs, but it's all the same idea. Locally here, I'm proud to work with a lot of different community organizations. I have to say, Christy's kept me honest here through the Bayville Library. She's always the first one to contact me and say, hey, when can we get a program on the schedule? And so I really appreciate that. But it really is a great community effort. The Protection Committee is obviously the sort of the founder and the instigator for this. But Cornell Cooperative Extension has been a great partner and giving us technical advice, and they provide most of the oysters for us from their Southold shellfish hatchery. Friends of the Bay, as you guys know, is a good environmental advocate for Oyster Bay. Heather and her crew have been amazing, doing anything that we need and bringing experts like Bose Hancock to help us with the research, working with the town of Oyster Bay, et cetera. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Jeff's boss in the village of Laurel Hollows. Jeff is a trustee, but Mayor DeVita, who's the chair of our protection committee, has been unbelievable in supporting the efforts here, from allowing us to have such a big operation at the village of Laurel Hollow Beach, to coming down himself and using his pickup truck and his own sweat equity to clean cages, repair cages, do amazing amounts of things. And our friends in the village of Bayville and many of the villages around have been incredible. And even just the last 2 days, the Waterfront Center in Cameron Jeunesse has done a great job of running educational programs. So we have basically a full-time educational partner, where I literally just had a call from an elementary school in Cold Spring Harbor looking to learn more about the oysters. So I called Cameron up, and I think he arranged a program with them today. But he also has schools from across Nassau County, probably Long Island, coming to the Waterfront Center, where they have some cages set up, and he can explain to them the work they do. And then the town of Oyster Bay has also been really, really good to us. Obviously, very supportive of our efforts. A lot of people find us through the town's website, and the Bay Bottom is controlled by the town of Oyster Bay for our public interest, and the spawner sanctuary is of their doing. So it's been really, really incredible. And you'll hear more about all the oysters they put in there and some of the science and research that they're doing to help us with the sanctuary. So a little bit about oysters. When they in wild, they reproduce, and anywhere they reproduce based on temperature. In the hatchery, our oysters right now are probably a month old. They're probably spawned in the hatchery just by feeding them really, really good algae in the middle of the winter, and warming the waters up slowly. When they get to the magic temperature, the egg and the sperm are released. The free swimming larvae go swim around for about 2 weeks. So most people think of oysters as sedentary, but they do have 2 weeks of a wild and crazy bachelor life. And then they eventually settle down on something hard. Their preferred something hard to settle on is another oyster shell. That's where you get those three-dimensional reefs stacking up. But they'll settle on anything. We were joking, we're talking to some of the researchers. They'll settle down on crushed toilet bowls, garbage, tires. At Maritime, on our seawall. So they'll settle on any good, hard, clean surface. And that's where they'll stay for the rest of their life. And then within 2 to 3 years, they'll mature and be able to reproduce on their own. Most of them start off their life as females, and then they can switch back and forth, depending on how good the food source is, generally. And then they can live 20 years or more. So that's why it's really key to have these sanctuaries where they're protected for those 20 years. All the oysters we use here are Eastern oysters. They are 2 different setting techniques, and most of the oysters that you see in our local stores from the East Coast are this type of the Eastern oyster. They may go by different names. Blue Point was the name that came from probably the most famous oyster name that generally came from the Great South Bay and the Blue Point Oyster Company. Pine Island Oysters was a local oyster here done by the Franklin Flower and Sons Oyster Company. And then there's all sorts of, different oysters, especially now with some of the leases out in the Peconic Bay. But as we point out here, there's just same oyster, there's 2 different ways of doing it. You can have them set on a single piece of eggshell or clamshell, oyster shell that's really, really small. And so they grow like single beautiful oysters like that. And those are generally what hatcheries have been doing, because that's what they need for the half shell market to sell to, the restaurants or directly to consumers. As a restoration project, we're explicitly not trying to sell them. So we actually prefer them that they're put on a whole oyster shell. One of the things the town has done with the support of Friends of the Bay is create a shell recycling program. And they take the recycled shell and they put them in these settling tanks, and the spat settle on there here. And you can see here, there's maybe 20 oysters on this one shell. Oh, and then as they grow, they become these three-dimensional clumps, which makes them less desirable for the half shell trade. So there's no poaching of the sanctuary, but they also create an intricate habitat and lots of good hiding places and nooks and crannies to create that reef that we were talking about. Does anybody have any questions about the two different oysters? I should mention here, we are slowly, I think, transitioning from purely single set oysters to more spat on shell oysters, as more and more hatcheries are producing spat on shell and we're able to obtain them. It's great. There are two areas. Any area that we have an oyster garden in, and I'll show you a map in a second, we have to have spat on shell in oyster areas that the oysters are shellfishing is closed. So the Eagle Dock and Beekman Beach in Oyster Bay are two areas where it's all spat on shell. But I think we're slowly going to increase the number of spat on shell at Laurel Hollow, Bayville, and some of the private docks.
Vicky asks if Frankham Flower and Sons is still in business in Bayville.
So Frankham Flower and Sons had two operations. They under one company. They had the shellfish hatchery in Bayville, and they had the harvest operations in downtown Oyster Bay, the Oysterman's Dock. The Bayville hatchery has been shut down for the past 2 years, and is no longer used. And all the operations are now out of Oyster Bay, and they're just harvesting oysters, or really clams. There's really no oysters to be harvested. Good question. Okay, so what is an oyster garden? So an oyster garden, as I mentioned, we have 100 seedlings, about 4 months old when we get them in June. They're about 12 millimeters in size, the size of a pinky nail. I'm not so good with the metric system, but that much I know. The cages, as you saw, this is what it looks like before they go in the water, and they're nice and clean, but they're just plastic bags with a 6 millimeter mesh size. Just remember, these oysters are filter feeders, so we need the water to flow through them. And the floats on the side keep them suspended. On the bottom here, you can see the cages are put between two moorings, with these floating balls and lines, and they're just clipped on with what we call diaper clips. And they just float there right on the surface, free from predators like oyster drills or crabs or anything else that would be a natural predator that would be on the bottom of the bay. What's not shown here is the spat on shell cages are 1-inch wire cages hung similarly from the lines, but their cages are a little bit wider, more flow, because they're on larger shells, so there's no fear of them falling through. Here's our map of the oyster gardens. The one thing that's not accurate here is, while we do not have a location in West Neck Beach in Huntington, we have had that, but quite honestly, lawyers got involved, and we weren't able to do that. But the locations that we do have are West Harbor Beach in Bayville, which is just to the west of the pier, the dock at West Harbor Beach. Beautiful sandy site. 2 moorings there. We have traditionally done single set oysters here. Beekman Beach in Oyster Bay. This will be our 2nd year at Beekman Beach. 2 years ago, we had a site more in mid-harbor, but we moved it to Beekman Beach this year, or last year. Since the shellfish closure line in Oyster Bay goes right along the southern part of the harbor here, where the downtown area is, this area has to be spat on shell oysters. So they're, once again, those more like shoebox shaped cages with a bigger mesh. where the program started in 2017 and still probably our busiest and most popular areas, the Village Dock at Laurel Hollow. And then we, and believe it or not, that's just on the opening side of the closure line. So that can be either single set oysters or spout and shell. And then the Eagle Dock Association on the Huntington side of Cold Spring Harbor, we have spout and shell oysters there. And then if you are fortunate enough to be a waterfront homeowner or have access to a community dock that you'd like to, or a private dock that you'd like to hang oysters on, you can certainly join the program. We've had quite a few people around the Village Laurel Hollow Dock, at Sewanaka Yacht Club, Cold Spring Harbor Beach Club. Thank you very much, Caroline Du Bois. Laurel Lloyd Harbor Park, the Lloyd Neck Bath Club is always very, very supportive of the program. And that's great to have oysters in all these different locations, because the more people that see them, the more people attend to them, the better it is for our outreach and the better it is for the harbor. Does anybody have any questions about the locations of the community gardens?
I think you have.
Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I live in Millneck Creek. Could we, if we wanted on our beach there, could we do a garden there?
Is it in Millneck Creek Beach?
Yeah,
We could try. We could apply for that. We haven't in the past, but we could apply. If not, the Village of Babel has been very generous to allow people from Millneck and Center Island to use West Harbor Beach, or you could also use Beacon Beach.
well, I'm just thinking more in terms of getting my community, Millneck Estates involved and having, my local neighbors involved in this project, because we have a private beach on Millneck Creek, and just that's the standpoint. We use the West Harbor Beach access when we participate.
Yeah, no, that's great. If I'll give you my email address if you don't have it already at the end. Please contact me about that. I'd be happy to come by, just double check the site, and it works. And I'll be happy to put in the permit if they let us do it. That'd be great.
Okay.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Rob,
Yeah, what's up, Jeff?
I just want to tell them that, they can park down, they can have a cage at Laurel Hollow too. We'll give you temporary parking.
Yeah.
You can have a cage there too.
Yeah. So what's been really nice about this program is all the different communities, like Jeff is saying, Laurel Hollow, have really come together to support all the neighboring communities. So that's been a really nice thing for sure. Okay. If there are no more questions, we'll move on a little bit here. I will give a heads up too. I know, I think I saw Claudia here. I saw Winnie here. Joyce is here as well. Some people have been previous gardeners. In a couple of minutes, if you guys would like to say a few words so people don't have to listen to me the whole time, but it'd be great to hear from some people who have gardened to tell a little bit about your experience, so they don't think I'm just giving a snow job. Okay, the gardening calendar. So this time of year in March and April, we're really promoting the program, encouraging people to sign up, trying to get the word out. I can't thank you guys enough for being here tonight. This is our first kickoff of this. And as I said, Christy's fantastic at the Babel Library, where she puts this on their YouTube channel. So it's invaluable to me because people hear about this and get excited. And so I can just give them the link to the Babel site and they can tune in there. But in May and June, we will have a cage building sessions, fixing up the cages. We'll train you on how to maintain your cages, how to clean the oysters, how to measure the oysters. And then we set up the gardens and we're going. And we go July through September, where we're cleaning and cages and measuring the oysters every other week, generally with a low tide. Each of those locations that we showed you, the moorings are put in such a place where at low tide, the average person can walk out there and just unclip their cages and get them. You're more than welcome to go out there at high tide if you want to swim out there, or we've had some people use this program as an excuse to dust off the kayaks and get them off the side of the garage and take them out, a couple times a month. You're more than welcome to do that. I have heard rumors that Jeff goes down on Tuesday nights and sings to his oysters. Might explain why they don't grow so well. But you're more than welcome to do it anytime you want, but we do arrange every other week in conjunction with low tide. We arrange for a community cleaning. So there's people to help you get to cages, people help you measure them, help you clean them. And that really becomes, I think, one of the highlights for the gardeners of all the great like-minded people that they get to meet. And then, yes, you start off with one cage because they're very small, as you saw, and they quickly, usually mid-August, the cage becomes so big and so heavy, the oysters become so big and the cage so heavy that we have to split the oysters in half, the numbers in half, to put them into two separate cages. And then by September, after Labor Day, we're all a little bit tired from a whole long year of maintaining the oysters. So we get ready to do a final count, final cleaning, and then we seed the oysters into the spawner sanctuary, which I should show you where that is. Right here in Laurel Hollow Dock. If you go just north here, there's a little patch right here where the spawner sanctuary is, and that's where all the oysters final home is. And then we also are very fortunate. The last few years, the Eagle Dock Association has hosted us for a potluck, celebration, where the gardeners are welcome to taste everyone else's fine food that they bring, but we also supply oysters and clams from as local as we can get them to that, and you can actually go home, take some oysters and clams home from that event, and it's just a really, really nice thank you at the end of the year. And I'll just go through this real quick, and I'd love to hear, this is where I'd love to hear stories from previous gardeners. But who are the oyster gardening crew? Anybody you can imagine. We have families that come with 3 generations from grandparents, mom and dad, with the grandkids. Absolutely awesome. We have a lot of neighbors. One of my favorite stories here is there's a woman who had lived, I think it was in Laurel Hollow, for 20 years, 30 years, and said she met more people through the oyster gardening program in one season than she met in all of 20, 30 years she had lived in the community. So it's really great. As you mentioned, there's waterfront homeowners. We've had just students from just about every group. I think our friend Bill is here from Jericho High School, but we've had Cold Spring Harbor, Oyster Bay High School, Locust Valley High School, a lot of the middle schools and elementary schools. Students can do this for community service. Students have done it for research, girls, Boy Scouts, and Sea Scouts. They've done it for gold, silver and gold awards, Eagle Scout awards. It's really amazing. We've had great church groups, and this is a perfect time to admit Deborah Perone to the room, because she can talk about the program as well. But it's amazing. And yes, we even have had elected officials come down and when the press isn't looking, and even tend to their oyster gardens, or have their interns tend to their oyster gardens. So it's really amazing to see all the different groups. But would one of the previous gardeners, or a couple of previous gardeners, like to maybe share their story of why they enjoy this program, and why would they even join us on a Tuesday night to listen to me talk when they know all this information already?
Hey, Rob, it's Claudia.
All right.
Actually, I have the girls listening in too. And this is our 3rd season doing it. We love it. It's a family affair. My daughters are 8 and 10. They have a blast helping out. It's a great environmental initiative. We care about our waterways. We love being in the water. As you've mentioned, it's just a wonderful group of people that are also very concerned about helping maintain our local gorgeous environment. And if anyone's not sure if they're going to enjoy the experience, I think you will. I think it's a really good time. And if you're not someone who likes getting dirty and getting in the water, there are plenty of us who do enjoy that. So you don't feel that it's either might be too much for you. There's a way for you to volunteer in some capacity and be a part of this wonderful process.
That's great, Claudia, and I appreciate your daughters joining, and they have been awesome, and thank you to your family too, because Claudia mentioned, but they took the family boat and helped us bring some of the oysters from Bayville over to the sanctuary at the end of last year, so that was a huge help. Winnie, and does anybody else, remember Deb, whoever else joined on, want to share their experience?
Rob?
Sure.
I can share. Now, Karina and I, my wife and I have been doing this for 2 years. This will be our third summer. And I have to tell you, the community that we feel that we're now a part of is tremendous. When we attended the celebration in September, that was amazing. The food was gourmet quality, great event. And I'm going to participate just because I want to be part of that celebration again.
That's all. You guys have been great. Thank you so much. That's great.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
this is Winnie.
Winnie.
I hate to say it. I've been part of this for like 3 years, and I always miss the celebration. I'm always somewhere else when it happens. But I think one of the nice things is, like everyone said, it's such a community thing, and we've met so many people. We've gone from Bayville to Oyster Bay and back to Bayville, and I think this year we'll go back to Oyster Bay. And we got interested first, just kind of stumbling upon it because my son rows for the Oyster Bay community rowing. So he spends his Saturdays during the summer, every day during the summer, actually rowing. So for us, it was just to be there, watch him row, do something for the community. And he's also part of the Boy Scouts, and we have actually one of our Boy Scouts, Connor, who used this as his Eagle project, I believe a year or two ago. So it's been a great community thing. And I actually find the more community aspect of it is actually the start. I love the building of the cages aspect, where you actually meet a lot of people getting the cages ready, snipping out the old toys and getting the tags on. That is like a really assembly line affair. So I find that part of it, not just the weekly cleaning, but the actual beginning part of building the cages to be fun.
Well, Winnie, I can't thank you and your husband and your family enough, because you did. I don't know how many cages you got your hands on last year, but I think you touched just about all of them and helped build them. So that was a tremendous help. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Does anybody else would like to say anything?
Yeah, hi, Vicky Metz here. Can you hear me?
Sure, Vicky, how you doing?
Hi, Rob. Good. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Hey, Rob, I've got a hello from my daughter, Caroline Cosgrove. And Caroline, 2 years ago, did the Oyster program. And my husband and I would come down and help her over at West Harbor in Bayville. And I thought it was so much fun and so interesting that this year I'm signing up.
That's great. Well, you tell Caroline that said hi.
Will do.
A big thank you from my son Griffin. He absolutely loves you. I love your daughter. She was amazing, but he knows and really respects her.
Thank you for that.
So
I'll pass it on. Thanks so much.
So and that really is a sense of community. That's fantastic. Anybody else like to talk?
Hi, this is Caroline Du Bois. I've known Rob forever through Friends of the Bay, and I'm a swimmer and a sailor, so I really love clean water. But recently, I got involved with the program first through my garden club, the Three Harbors Garden Club, which is sort of focused around Cold Spring Harbor. And I went down to the Eagle Dock Beach and saw what was going on. And I spoke to my friends at the Cold Spring Harbor Beach Club next door. And the junior program there had a bake sale and raised enough money to buy a couple of cages. They got a late start in the season, I have to say. And the kids by then it was kind of late at night, and it was hard for the kids who were exhausted from tennis and sailing and all the things they did. But at any rate, the beach club had a couple of cages off their boat dock, and I personally sponsored a random cage, and I have no idea who actually did the work on it, because I have arthritis and it's hard for me to get down in the water. So that was, I'm going to do it again.
That's
Thank
awesome. Caroline, a couple of key things on that too. First of all, thank you. Yes. And Caroline and I have only known each other 30 years. We met, we were in a cribs next to each other. It was amazing. No, but Caroline and her mom have been tremendous supporters. The first time I met Caroline was at a fundraiser for Friends of the Bay, literally 30 years ago at their home. But what she brings up is a good point. The oyster gardening program is open to anybody. We'll talk about the fees and the donations and stuff later, but there's generous people in the community like Caroline and others who sponsor cages. So if there's a Girl Scout troop, a Boy Scout troop, or a family that can't afford it, we encourage everybody to participate. You can volunteer, you can get your own cage. The main thing is to get people involved. And just to show you how far reaching this is, there was a young lady who was is a Cornell University student, and she was taking an environmental film class. And the oysters in the Cold Spring Harbor Beach Club, she wasn't coming back from break until November. And so we did actually a little shoot for her class for a project she was on using the oysters from the Cold Spring Harbor Beach Club. And we put those to bed after that. It was a very bitter cold day on around Thanksgiving. So it's amazing the reach of this program, and we appreciate the support from people like Caroline and other sponsors.
That's cool.
Is there anybody else who
Rob, we have somebody in the chat, Craig. He's an assistant scoutmaster for troop 339 in Massapequa.
Okay.
40 scouts, and he wants to know how the boys can get involved in a hands-on level. The dirtier, the better.
We love scouts. You want to look at Jeff? See how he's smiling? Looks like he the cat that ate the canary. No, Craig, the scouts are awesome. I used to joke that the Girl Scouts are doing way better job than the Boy Scouts, and I think I made them mad enough when now the Boy Scouts are coming out in full force. There's a troop in Bayville that's been phenomenal as well. So you're more than welcome to come to the cage building, like we talked about with Winnie. Throughout the summer, one of the things that people appreciate is people go away for vacation, or maybe they sign for a cage with great intentions of maintaining it, but they can't always maintain it. So when 5 or 6 boys or more boys come from a Boy Scout troop, or girls come from a Girl Scout troop, it absolutely makes the old timers like Jeff really, really happy that they've got people to help out. So plenty of dirty work to be done. We'd love to have you. You'll see my email at the end. We do have a email mailing list, which isn't too obnoxious. Obviously, we don't sell it to anybody, but you only get about one email from me, maybe a week when the season gets going. But it keeps you up to date on everything that's happening. So we'd love to have you. It's great that you'll make the trip up from Massapequa. I think it's a really awesome experience, and the kids will enjoy it for sure. Are there any other questions or any other comments from former gardeners? Not current gardeners. No one's a former gardener. You're all current gardeners. Okay. All right. What I'd like this is the most exciting part. So as I talked at the beginning, we really did this as an outreach and education program. It was just a way of educating people about water quality issues, getting people their feet wet and their hands muddy a couple times a month, coming down to the water and seeing how they're doing. Every year we do a survey at the end of the year, and people tell us, how much they've learned and how much they appreciate this. So that in and of itself, the engagement that we've done is tremendous. We also put the first spawner sanctuary, we're instrumental in getting the first spawner sanctuary in the town of Oyster Bay, either on the North Shore or South Shore. And that spawner sanctuary has now over 500,000 oysters from just this program alone. And then the town put another 100,000 oysters in the spawner sanctuary. And because we had a spawner sanctuary during COVID, the Pew Charitable Trust and the Nature Conservancy got a multi-million-dollar donation from a private individual. They bought adult oysters from oyster farmers who had lost their markets during COVID because they couldn't sell their oysters to restaurants. So the danger is they would go out of business, and when the oysters get past their prime size, they call them big and uglies, and nobody wants to buy a big and ugly oyster. Well, there's nothing better for a spawner sanctuary than a big and ugly oyster that has a good, hard, thick shell that can defend itself, but it's also very reproductively active. Okay, so a small portion of that but a significant portion of the SOAR program, SOAR program from Pew Charitable Trust and Nature Conservancy. I think they put about 60,000 oysters in the sanctuary, and those oysters were 4 to 5 inches in size, so they're already sexually mature and ready to reproduce. So that's awesome. In addition, the spawner sanctuary, because of its success, we just received a call from a researcher from the Milford Aquaculture Lab in Connecticut. It's a national lab. They want to study the oysters and how they're doing, and examining if there's any disease there, which we don't believe there is, because as oysters start to grow in close proximity, if there is disease, it could spread more quickly and potentially wipe out the oysters. In addition to that, we received a $70,000 to $80,000 grant where researchers from Adelphi University, Dr. Aaron Freeman and Dr. Ryan Wallace, along with Cornell Crop Extension, are looking at the spawner sanctuary to see how healthy it is, how well it's doing, and looking for other areas in Oyster Bay and Cold Spring Harbor where we could put additional spawner sanctuaries. But that's not all. You see Dr. Freeman on the right with the research here. We're looking, thanks to the support of Heather Johnson from Friends of the Bay, we're looking at SOAR, that program where we put the big ugly oysters in, 2.0, and it could mean another big batch of oysters coming to the spawner sanctuary. And we're working with researchers to put in for another larger grant to extend the research and really monitor the oyster efforts, that oyster restoration efforts we do in a very coordinated and scientific way, to build on all these efforts. And then the greatest thing to wrap all this success up is the town of Oyster Bay sponsored a study by a private consulting firm called Cashin and Associates, and they looked at the spawner sanctuary this year, and they deemed it a success, already improving habitat. The oysters, there's always natural mortality because of predation and natural die-off, but it's well within norms. They saw a slight recruitment, which is good, so we're tracking baby oysters, but they were very excited that there was a solid base of oysters that will start to contribute to returning natural oysters back to Cold Spring Harbor. So that report was, evidence of what we were hoping for, that all the work that the volunteers have done over these last 5 years is really starting to pay off. So I can't even keep up with all the things that are going on with the oysters, but it's all because of the sweat equity with the people on this call and so many more. So thank you so much for that. Does anybody have any questions about this, or did I miss any of the great details about what's going on?
Maybe you could tell them how many oysters one oyster produces, how many babies or eggs.
Yeah, so I've seen crazy numbers that I don't even believe, but it's a female oyster can produce 1 million or more eggs a year. So in nature, the survival is very, very low, less than 1%. So what we're doing, the oysters that we raise, if you have, and some of the gardeners can probably back me up on this, if we give you 1,000 oysters, it's hard to estimate, because we don't do actual counts, but we say 90 to 95% survival. I think it's probably even higher than that. It's very, very rare that the oysters in our cages die. So we're doing a great job of getting them to a much larger size. We get them, as I said, to 2 to 3 inches in size, so they can fend for themselves. But once the oysters are out there, and as I said, they mature in 2 to 3 years, as Jeff said, the females can produce up to 1 million oysters, eggs a year. And so if we can just get a small percentage of them surviving, the bay will be a lot better for it. Last chance for questions before the sales pitch. All right. Very good. We'll have plenty more time for questions for as long as you want, but really, really exciting stuff. So we want you. We want you to join as an oyster gardener. As we said, we'd love for you to make a donation to help support purchasing the oysters and the cages and all the materials we need. But we just want you involved, whether it's a Boy Scout troop from Massapequa Park, or whether it's we have retired teachers in the Bayville area, whoever it is, we'd love to have you involved. How do you get involved, you ask? So you could register online. The Village of Laurel Hollow has very graciously hosted an online payment portal. So if you go to laurelhollow.org, that's open, and you can register and you can pick which garden you'd like to work at. The donation or the fee that we ask is $175 per garden. You can either sponsor a garden for another group, as Caroline generously did, or you can volunteer to support a garden, or you can have the garden for yourself and your family. Once you pay that $175, I promise, Jeff might try to hit you up for more money, but I won't hit you up for any more money. It covers everything. The training will let you help us build cages, right, Jeff? We're not going to charge them for that to help us build cages. No. All right, build cages, all the equipment that you need, and you get 1,000 oysters. Any of the support that we can get that you need over the season, and then, as you heard, we do have a really nice celebration at the end, and we don't eat any of our oysters. But part of this program is now supporting. We try to support the local baymen and the local harvesters, but for oysters we don't have any. So we do purchase oysters or clams from as close as we can find. And the sales pitch space is limited, but I meant to take that out this year because that's not true. We're never going to turn anybody away. We'd love to have, our goal is to have 150 gardens. I think last year we actually had more than 150 gardens. Last year we probably had more than that because the hatchery had a really good year and they were particularly generous with us. But does anybody have any questions about how to become a gardener?
Well, listen, I just want to say, Rob, I think I ate $175 worth of oyster at the celebration.
I wanted to talk to you about that. Yeah. No, I will say the amount of food, in addition to the clams and oysters, is tremendous at that. People really do put on a nice spread. So that is a nice way to end the season, for sure.
Hey, Rob, when we register online, will we be able to do it with a credit card, or do we mail a check to somebody?
I'm looking at Jeff. No, we prefer, those of us in the 21st century prefer you pay by credit card.
Okay.
Jeff doesn't trust the credit cards, and he walks I think he gets on his horse and rides it down to Village Hall and gives them a check.
There's also a fee to do with a credit card.
Yes, yeah, there is a credit card fee, which you could pay, or do you have to pay or not, whatever, but yes, there is a fee. So but yes, credit card's great.
Thank you.
I have a question, Rob.
Sure.
Is there certain scheduled days that everybody gets together to do this as a group? Or
We do, yeah, we do.
go whenever
haven't
you
looked-
want?
Yeah, well, yes, and yes.
Okay.
Well, but yes. So you can visit your baby oysters anytime you want, and some people, as I said, like to go kayaking during the week, and they'll go and check out their oysters. But as Winnie and Claudia and some other folks have said, it's nice once every other week. We have community cleanings, generally on Saturday mornings, which we find works for most people. So they come down, and that's like for in Bayville, there's always probably half a dozen to a dozen scouts helping bring the cage. They love swimming out and getting the cages, and then they'll help people measure and stuff like that. So that's really helpful. I will give a schedule by after people sign up, within a month or two, you can sign up. If you're really anxious to see what the days are, you really just have to look at a tide schedule, and whenever low tide is on a Saturday morning, that's what it'll be. Just the way our tide cycle works, every other Saturday has a low tide, somewhere between 5 and 11 a.m. and that's when we do it. So it works out really simply.
And we're not crazy about when you go, or if you can't get there for 2 or 3 weeks, there is somebody who will take care of your cage.
Yeah, yes. You're allowed to take vacation this summer. You just can't rub it in where you went. But there's plenty of, I won't say there's plenty of people. We encourage everyone to come down, but that's where scouts and other people come in handy. If we see a cage that looks a little bit fuzzier than the other ones from a lot of algae growth on it, they'll take it off and scrub it for you as well. So the biggest thing about this, it's fun and relaxed. We've had people who we haven't cleaned their cages or it's slipped through, and a month and a half go by, and the oysters are still, they're not as big because they're not filtering as well, but they're still doing just fine. So it's great. I think my next slide here. Oh, so here's our question discussion slide, but here's my information for everyone to take a look at. So if you have any questions or comments now, I'd be happy to sit on the line here and talk to you about them personally. You can always shoot me an email. If you shoot me an email, I will, unless you tell me otherwise, I'll put you on our MailChimp app, and we'll send you notices about when, reminders about registration, or when the cage cleaning is, or when the cage building is, and you can get updated there. Anybody who registers through the Laurel Hollow site will also obviously be put on the email list. I'll get that list and update the information there. But are there any more questions?
I just wanted to share, I guess, or how do I follow up? I've tried on the Laurel Hollow site to enter a credit card and my check, and it doesn't like anything. They don't want my money.
Just right now?
Yeah.
All right. So disregard what I say. You can't do that now. I will follow up with them tomorrow and find out what's going on there. And just send me an email, and then I'll let you know when the site's functioning. I thought I didn't check to run a credit card through, but I know they updated the site for this year. But it's
Yeah, I tried both. Internal system error has occurred. Please try again later.
Oh, that's right after this meeting. I'll send them a message. They're pretty good. They should check it. They'll be able to fix it the next day or two, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for checking.
Somebody else said they were unable to pay online.
Jeff, this is tragedy. People are trying to pay and they can't. No, we'll
Take your check. You can send a
See?
check.
This is all we need. There's going to be a bunch of horses down at Laurel Hollow Village Hall tomorrow with people paying by check. I can see it.
All right, Rob, it sounds like you will contact Laurel Hollow and get them to know that their site's not working properly. And I guess everybody should just check back at the site periodically.
Yeah, certainly by next Monday, but I'll contact them tomorrow.
Terrific. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Christine, the Bayville Library, for hosting this. It's always great to kick off the season with you guys, and it's great to see how, even with the limitations on the in-person things at the library, that you're able to do these great things for the community. So we really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. We are extremely happy to support these local causes. Of course, we are local, and we appreciate everything you guys are doing. So I'll be in touch with you to remind you about next year's meeting.
I bet you will. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Remember, people, tell your friends, and we'll send them the link to the Bayville YouTube site, which will have this up there in a few days.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful evening and a great weekend. Good night.
Good night.